The Cat's Whiskers podcast is proudly sponsored by the Bunkers Hill Hockley. Don't miss Panthers game day offers, including Coors Light at £2.50 a pint. It's 8:45pm on, it's Thursday, isn't it? The 12th of April, 2018. And this is the final Cat's Whiskers podcast of the season, and we're live. Hello and welcome to the Cat's Whiskers podcast. My name is Jono Bullard, and joining me this evening are Aaron Lord.
Hello.
Antoine Marie-Jeanne.
Evening.
Tina Taylor.
Hiya.
And Adam Reddish.
Good evening.
So we are, of course, going to be looking back at a packed playoff finals weekend and all the other news that has happened since in the Elite League and around the world of hockey as well. We'll also be revealing our final player of the week for the Panthers, and we've also had some of your comments over today about the Panthers season on Twitter, plus a bonus Ask TCW question that has been sent to us this evening. If you want to get in touch with us, you can do via Twitter while we are live. It is at Cat's Whiskers TV. We would love to hear from you if you are listening. But we are going to get straight onto it and start back on Saturday, where the beer was flowing along with the Jaegers, and everyone except myself was there to see the Panthers take on the Steelers in the playoff weekend semi-final. The first semi-final had gone the way of the Cardiff Devils. They beat Five Flyers 4-0. So it was between the Steelers and the Panthers to see who would face Cardiff in Sunday's final. Unfortunately, it wasn't good for the Panthers. Despite being 2 goals up twice, they succumbed 5-4 to the Steelers after overtime. Panthers goals coming from Alexander Mokshantsev, Luke Pither with 2 and Jeff Brown. Steelers goals coming from Matthew Waugh, Jonathan Phillips, Ben O'Connor, Levi Nelson with equaliser. I think it was 80 seconds before the end, and then John Armstrong breaking hearts in overtime with the winner. So, guys, you were all there. I was watching it on the Steelers webcast. It was heartbreaking, wasn't it? I mean, Aaron, you tweeted that it was heartbreaking, and I think you still feel pretty similar now.
I do indeed, Jono. I do indeed. I think what made it worse was the fact, like you just mentioned, 2-goal lead a couple of times during the game, and you just think, that we're gonna do it, and to lose in the manner that we did it's just horrible and heartbreaking, and it's a bit like deja vu, really, isn't it? The Steelers have scored the winning goal against us so many times this season late on. Watching the highlights about half an hour ago, the John Armstrong goal reminds me a bit of Desbian's goal last year in the quarterfinal, which that was. Just skating down the outside and our defence not really being strong enough to push them away from our net, and skates in close and scores the winning goal. So just really, really disappointed. I thought we started the game excellently. You want to come out the blocks, and we did that, but the game turned out to be a symbol of our season, really. That's the way I kind of look at it now. And yes, it's still annoying and hurts, but you kind of also accept that maybe it just wasn't meant to be, and we just wasn't good enough at certain stages of the season, and in games, really we couldn't close out winning positions. And like I said, I think that whole game kind of summed up our season and was a great symbol of how our season started, carried on, and then finished for me.
Tina, just not good enough in the end?
Yeah, that's pretty much a summary of it, really. Even if we had made it through to the final, I've got serious doubts that we'd have actually made it past Cardiff anyway. So would it have mattered at what stage we lost? I suppose. I mean, we got to playoff final weekend by clawing back 2-3 goal deficits. Our own quarterfinals. We managed to become our opposition. So you'd have thought we might have learnt from Belfast's losing their 2-3 goal leads, but we didn't. We didn't learn a damn thing. We got ahead. We got ourselves into a good position, and we just weren't good enough to hold back the onslaught from the Steelers. Pure and simple, we weren't good enough.
I mean, Adam, how did they conspire to lose that game? Because I was, like I say, I was watching on the webcast. I thought we looked comfortable, even when they brought it back to 2-2. And from the webcast, I must admit, Steelers first didn't look like it crossed the line. Now, obviously, we only had the webcast, and I got dog zone abuse for actually putting that opinion on Twitter. How dare I? But it was 2-2. But I think Panthers still look comfortable. Pulled out another 2 goals through Pither and Jeff Brown. I thought, there we go. And to be fair, Mustakovs was being saved by his defence. I think David Phillips made an outstanding goal line save for one that he just completely missed. And it was just getting to the point where you was just thinking, well, come on, we can take this. We've got this game. And then somehow conspired to lose it. I mean, how?
Good question. I think we just turned off. I think the concentration went. You think throwing a 1-2 goal lead away, in a game of that magnitude was bad enough, but to do it again, and when we got to 4-2 to give up that lead and see it tied up at 4-4, I just think it. Aaron talked about it a few minutes ago. It summed up seasonal. We just got complacent. I think that the effort was there early on and the quality was there early on, and I think we probably took Sheffield a bit by surprise the way that we started the game. But it was great to see from my perspective, and I dare say from everyone else there that were supporting the Panthers. But I don't know. There's been times since we had that disastrous run in the middle of the season where we do just simply switch off mentally and lose all sort of semblance of concentration. And I don't think that we ever thought it was in the bag, because our games with Sheffield this year would suggest that they will keep you honest, because they've been better than us this year, really, in terms of the head-to-head. But it was really, really predictable in some sense to see Sheffield start to come back into the game again, and it just felt that we didn't have that mettle or resolve in the team to do anything about it and to try and hold Sheffield at arm's length, even if it meant changing the tactics a little bit, and maybe being a little more defensive in our play. But you could call it naivety, really, that we've took 1-2 goal lead away and we did it again, and it's just, come on, guys, and that extends to Nielsen as well. You've got to sort of coach the game as it evolves, and when you get to 4-2, whilst you shouldn't really park the bus and pull the shutters down, because I don't think Panthers' defence is good enough to do that, you sort of make adjustments to the game that you play to try and make sure that you keep the puck as far away from your own net as possible. But we just seem to invite pressure, and there was a really nasty sense of inevitability about it. I think when the third goal went in for the Steelers, I thought it was only a matter of time before the equaliser went in, and lo and behold, they managed to get back level with us before the end of 60 minutes.
I mean, for you, what were the key moments in that game? What were the key moments that lost Panthers that game, apart from obviously Steelers scoring?
The first one for me was I'm going to differ with Adam's opinion, actually, because I think we did sit back in the third, because that team that turned up in the third period was nowhere near the team that was playing the first and second. I think we got nervous, and we didn't have the confidence in ourselves to just carry on and playing the way we were, and have that ability to, put the game to bed. I know there was the goal line clearance. Forgive me, I can't remember what period that was in. Most of the weekend's a blur. But then when Sheffield got their third, at that point, I knew I felt for the worst. I thought, when we came out in the third period, I turned around to Paul, who was sat next to me. Not Paul Baum. This is a different Paul. And I said to him, mate, next goal wins. Next goal is the goal. And then Sheffield got it, and it was like, oh, bloody hell. So yeah, I think that they were the two turning points for me. The fact that we didn't come out and play the same game, and then obviously conceding that third goal. It was just nerves after that, and you could tell in the players they were nervous.
And talking of nerves, Raphael Bouzier had a golden opportunity to put the Panthers 5-3 up with very little time left.
You got a censor button?
No, keep it clean. But obviously I was watching on an iPad, so I didn't have the biggest screen available to watch it, but I sort of watched that. I don't want to single anyone out. It's sometimes not fair, but you have to say you've got to score them chances. I think I'd have even backed myself to put that one away.
I mean, I'd been sort of bigging him up before the playoffs with our little group. I was saying, look, Bouchier's going to score the winning goal, and then everybody will be off his back, because I think he's the one that's been singled out the most. In the fans, in the biggest disappointment, if you like, and I feel for the guy. But then, how many times is that sort of chance he's had this time? In this season, and more or less an empty net, and he've missed, and it can't keep happening. I mean, the poor sod must have literally no confidence whatsoever. It was just at that moment I just sort of went, oh, bleep. Yeah, it was not fun. I mean, I don't know what the other guys think.
Yeah, let's open it up.
Oh, pretty much the same as what Ant just said. I couldn't believe he missed it. And you talk about big moments. Yeah, I think Jono would have scored it.
I was usually pretty deadly from a foot out.
But you've got to take those chances. You really have. I mean, it's not a complicated finish by any stretch of the imagination. All you've got to do is get a decent amount of stick on it, and it goes in the back of the net. And at that stage of the game, you really do think that that's it. It's all done and dusted, and the Panthers are going to the final. But it's just symptomatic of his season and symptomatic of the team's season in general. We just haven't been clinical enough in front of goal, and we've missed that cutting edge, that sharpness in front of net, and it sort of bit us on the behind in the worst possible way on Saturday, because that goal would have took us to the final. I'm convinced of it. Yet, a player hasn't been able to execute something that 99.9% of other professional ice hockey players probably would have done in their sleep. And yeah, somebody might say, yes, but you're not in that situation. You might have got nervous, etc. But hockey players rely on sort of like memory muscle, don't they? There wasn't enough time for him to freeze. To just make some simple contact and put the puck in the back of the net. You've got to be able to do that in your sleep, and those sorts of glaring misses leave you with your head in your hands. It's been all too common for the Panthers since Christmas, and once again it cost us big time in possibly the biggest game that we played this season.
Yeah. Anyone else? Okay. So obviously, as I said, I was watching the webcast, and as soon as Steelers equalised with 80 seconds to go, Levi Nelson scored. That gave him the momentum, and I just thought to myself, there's only going to be one winner now going into overtime, and so it proved. Did anybody else feel differently? Aaron,
Nope.
Did you think that Panthers might have taken it in overtime, or did you think that Levi Nelson strike had a sense of inevitability about it?
Do you know what? The only thing I thought was that we had the experience, obviously, in the quarter-final against Belfast. So I thought, we should feel confident in that sense. But I also had the dread of, kind of the momentum being with Sheffield. And the problem is 3-on-3, overtime. It's you flip a coin, don't you, really? It's so end-to-end, and, every chance is kind of near enough a grade A chance. And at that point, there was just so many emotions. There was a little bit of drunkenness, I have to admit. Nervous, sort of dread. But also there was a feeling of we can still do this because we are still in the tie. It's not like we have, lost in regulation. But it's kind of like what I said earlier. It's just typical of how our season has been. And I also find, like I said earlier, again, the goal is a little just bit. It's too similar to goals that we've given up in previous seasons. Just quite not tough enough at that back end to make sure that a player of John Armstrong's calibre, that he's got no qualms in going to that net as close as he can physically get away with. And we've let him, and that's disappointing, really. So a mixture of emotions, unfortunately, but it's in the history books now, isn't it?
It is indeed. And Tina, you said back then that you felt there was an air of inevitability about it. Mm.
Yeah. As soon as that goal went in, I looked at the gang who I sit with, and I said, "We're not winning this." And bless her, they did try to inject a bit of positivity and say, "Look, we've not done bad in overtime, and we might snatch it." And I'd have to say that, yeah, on top of the fact that I didn't think we were going to come through overtime as winners. I've already said it. I didn't think for a minute that playing like that, we were going to get past Cardiff. It wasn't going to happen. So, you either go out now and just you have a chilled, stress-free final, or you suffer suffer the disappointment of losing in the final. I don't know. It just, I think when that goal went in, I was kind of, I wasn't happy with it, but I was kind of at peace with it. I was just, it just went in, and I just sort of shrugged my shoulders, and I sat there, and as I said, we're not going to win in overtime. And it was a resignation. It was a statement I 100% believe, but it was a resignation. I think to be honest, I expected that goal coming as soon as the goal that Bussier should have scored didn't. I fully expected a Steelers equaliser when Bussier failed to slot that puck in what felt like a wide open net that covered half of the rink. So I expected it, and I think I had resigned myself to the fact that goal was coming. So when it actually did, I wasn't shocked. I wasn't angry particularly. I was just disappointed.
I think that was the prevailing feeling. It wasn't just sort of there wasn't really much anger. I think it was just disappointment, and I think, like you say, almost an expectation, because it was another late goal, and then they went on and won in overtime. But I think we'll leave all this heartbreak there for the time being. So Steelers went on to face the Devils in Sunday's final, and Panthers went on to the lovely named Hangover Cup, or the third place playoff, or the consolation final, as the Elite League are now calling it, on Sunday morning.
No, it's the Hangover Cup.
Hangover Cup. I'm sorry. Hangover Cup is the only way I'm ever going to refer to it ever again.
And of course, this was going to be the final games in their Panthers career for David Clarke and, of course, Corey Nielsen, the coach. And I suppose to start, before I go through the goal scorers and the score, was it the fitting stage for their Panthers careers to end after so much success?
I think you already know the answer to that question.
No.
We've already talked about it. You know, we've already said the last thing that any of us wanted was for David Clarke and Corey Nielsen to bow out in a game that nobody cares about and nobody wants to be at. I mean, you know, albeit that there was, you know, quite a crowd from what I understand. You know, there were quite a few people there, and you know, I don't know whether that's just, I don't know, people were going just because it was something to do, or, you know, because it was Corey Nielsen and David Clarke's last game. But yeah, it's, I just can't, I can't bring myself to go to that game. I did watch a bit of it on Facebook Live, you know, because that's, you know, that's how much credence that game gets. You know, you charge £10 per semi-final the day before, and the final is on Auntie Beeb, but all this one gets is Facebook Live, which just tells you everything of the worth and the value of the game itself. I mean, there are a couple of decent things that happened during the game. You know, there was it was a seemingly mandatory timeout called for David Clarke at 5 minutes to go, and from what I hear, you know, there was a standing ovation from most of the crowd that were there, and then they made him stay out until he scored a goal. So, you know, there was a couple of things that were done to mark the occasion, but it wasn't really the fitting occasion that I would have wanted for them, certainly.
Well, it finished Panthers 8, 5 flies 2, so Panthers taking third place in the playoffs. Panthers goals coming from Jeff Brown, Luke Pither, Zach Phillips with 2, Ollie Betteridge with 2, Mark DeLego, and of course the final goal for David Clarke. 5 flyers goals coming from Jim Jorgensen and Carlo Finucci. Was any of you actually there?
Yeah.
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 I mean, I've seen it obviously on social media. An incredible tribute to David Clarke. 5 minutes to go, the whole game stopped so he could take a deserved standing ovation, and it seemed that everybody in the building, you know, respected that and gave him the ovation that he deserved.
Con, I'll let you go first.
Okay. Yeah, it was. I think part of my frustrations the night before, the worst bit was sitting down after that game, and credit to them, the Sheffield lot were the first lot over, and they proper cheered me up and bought me a few beers, which helped. But then it was the realisation that, good God, I'm gonna have to go to the Hangover Cup game on the Sunday. It's the first time I've ever. No, I'll tell a lie. I went to the when Hull were in it. I watched the first period of that. Yeah, it was. It got to the point when obviously they did the tribute for Clarkey, which they wouldn't have been able to do in the final for obvious reasons. And there was not one person sat down. Even the Sheffield fans, the Cardiff fans, Belfast fans, the whole lot of them, everybody was on their feet and gave him a round of applause, and he did a little skate. And then I think the best bit for me of the actual games this weekend was then trying to get Clarkey a goal and Mar in the 5 goal. Just saving everything. I think he became, even the 5 fans started booing him at one point. It was like, just let the guy score, he's clearly knackered. But yeah, it was emotional. There was a fair few There was not many dry eyes, let's put it that way.
Aaron, was you present at the fourth place player?
I was, yeah. Watched it all, yeah.
Yeah, and so your thoughts on the tribute for David Clarke?
Tribute for David Clarke and Corey Nielsen, spot on, perfect in hindsight. Unless we were going to go and beat Cardiff, then it was possibly the best way for it to all end. So that was capable, and we could do that. As a game, I think after about 45 seconds, I turn around to somebody and I says, "This is cack, innit?" Because that's what it is. It's absolute cack. It's professional sports people skating at 2 miles an hour. Refs left the whistles in the changing room because they can't be asked to blow anything. To be fair, there was some decent goals in there, but the tribute for Clarkey and the chances for Corey, whatever. And I felt this with the Corey thing really. There's a lot of people that kind of said stuff on social media and on obviously the Panthers forum on the cage about Corey Nielsen, but I thought the chanting was spot on as well. And I didn't expect the whole 5-minute thing. That totally surprised me. And it was such a nice surprise. But as Ant says, everybody that I was in our box with, was emotional. It was, and to see kind of them at the very end having photos and the kind of realisation that is the last time you're going to see David Clarke in a Panthers shirt skating, and also, supporting a Corey Nielsen Panthers. And it really kind of hit home, and it really made me think that, our club and our organisation is going through a massive, kind of phase now over this, off season of, off the ice regarding the coaching, but also massively on it, because we're losing somebody that's been the figurehead of our organisation for the last, God knows how many years. And it was really, really nice, as Ant says, to see the whole arena kind of standing up and appreciating, not necessarily what he's done for the Panthers, but what David Clarke has done for British ice hockey as well. I'm pleased I went to it and I had to go to it because I wanted to be there for it. So in one way, it was kind of a nice fitting end, but as Tina says, we all really wanted the end to be a photo of Corey and Clarkey raising the playoff trophy.
And that wasn't to be. That was left to the Cardiff Devils and the Sheffield Steelers. In the end, it was the Cardiff Devils who beat the Steelers 3-1 in the final. Goals coming from Matt Pope, Andrew Hotham and Jake Morissette. Eric Neely with the reply for the Steelers. So, Adam, right result?
Yeah, for me, I think it was a right result. Cardiff seemed to want to play the ice hockey during the game. They had the better chances for me. They looked like they were wanting the offensive chances a bit more than Sheffield, who sort of played a bit more cat and mouse than Cardiff. I don't think it was a classic final as such. I don't think it came close to last year's quality. But then last year's was a pretty special game. But yeah, I thought Cardiff were the better of the two teams during the game. Better chances. They just had that little bit more quality than Sheffield, which isn't to be unexpected given how easily they sort of trotted to winning the league this year. So yeah, and I think that the right team won. I mean, I'd love Panthers to have won, don't get me wrong, but I think that Cardiff probably, over the course of the season, clearly played some of the best hockey, and the playoff trophy at the end of the line for them was quite a fitting reward, really. So, but they've just got a ton of great players. I mean, their roster is stacked with top quality players. Netminding, Ben Bounds, pretty special netminder. They've got quality on the blue line. They've got guys like Martin up front, who's unbelievable. And Jake Morissette, who's the heartbeat of that side from what I've seen over the last few seasons. I'd love to have a Jake Morissette type of player at the Panthers, because he just knits everything together. And he was there doing his job again on Sunday during the final to great effect. So I think Cardiff deserved it really, and a little bit surprised that it was so tight for so long. But Steelers sort of dug in and tried to play the long game. But I think Cardiff's quality just about shone through in the end, and they deserved to win.
Did any of you feel that Steelers could win that final?
No.
Oh, let's put it this way, I wouldn't have been surprised. You're never surprised when it's anything involving Sheffield.
True. But not a surprise, really, that Cardiff went and took it, Tina.
No, definitely not. I mean, I did cheekily suggest on a podcast not so long ago that they needed to avoid falling victim to bridesmaid mode again, and I don't know, perhaps that was their team talk written for them. It wouldn't be the first time that had happened to me, but yeah, I mean, if Sheffield had won, that wouldn't have surprised me, but based on the seasons as a whole for Steelers and the Devils, it wouldn't have been deserved on that particular form. I mean, obviously you've got to win your games. You get to the playoffs, you win your playoff games, you absolutely deserve to get your hands on that trophy. But in terms of consistency of league seasons and the meetings between the two teams, you'd have to say that Cardiff, that they owned it, and I think they would have had reason to have felt hard done by had Sheffield snatched it from them again.
Okay. Well, we will move on from there. As we say, congratulations, Cardiff Devils. A fantastic season for them, taking the conference title, the league title, and the playoff title, and also getting to the final of the Challenge Cup. So, a quite outstanding season for the Cardiff Devils, and very much deserved. They were, I think we'll all agree, the best team in the league this season by a country mile. So, we will now move on to the Panthers Player of the Week for the final time this season. In third place is Patrick Galbraith. In second place, it was Luke Pither with 3 goals over the weekend. And in first place, it will be no surprise, I'm feeling glad all over, yes, I'm glad all over, baby, I'm glad all over, so glad you're mine. Yes, of course, the music should tell you that the winner of the Player of the Week is, of course, David Clark, who goes on to retirement now. And we would like to wish him all the very, very best for his retirement. And please, David, don't be a stranger. Okay, earlier today, we asked for some comments from you on Twitter for the show this evening. And we just asked, can you sum up the Panthers season in a tweet? We'll start with our good friend, Mr. Paul Baum. He says, bang to a whimper, Mokshantsev's CHL wonder goal to Bouzier's playoff fluff. This season has been like a roller coaster. The biggest hill and the biggest thrill come first, and then it works its way downhill. The thrill's getting smaller and smaller. You might want to go again, but just not yet. Obviously, some people sent gifts, which are very difficult to read out on an audio show, so I think I'll leave them there. Peter Allen, at Pete Allen 94, he says, our semi-final summed up our season. Started really well with a lot of promise, but didn't push on and achieve what they easily could have. A few high moments, but on the whole, disappointing and quite deflating. Andy White, at Mr. Al White, he says, started so well and genuine pride in how the team played, especially in the European games, quickly degenerated into an embarrassment at the standard of play from December onwards, especially in the games against Sheffield. Seems to be a pattern forming here. Ray Adams at Ray Asbo 26. Massive underachievement after the CHL performances. One of the most boring seasons I can remember. The last one was Blaisdell's last effort, and that's going back some time as well. Angus Wilson, he says, I think ultimately when Corey turned down a new contract in late November, December, that is when the team really started to go downhill. It should have been kept from everyone, including the team. Poor discipline and not enough scoring power. Key re-signs, Pither, Brown, Galbraith and Mosey. Talking of that, I mean, re-signings, Angus goes on, Pither, Brown, Galbraith, Mosey. Are they 4 players you'd all like to see back?
I didn't realise that's what we were going to be talking about that so soon.
Pither, yes.
Yes, absolutely. I would 100% agree with Pither. I think he's been fabulous since he arrived. He hit the ground running and didn't stop. So yeah, I would say so. I mean, the one thing I would say about Galbraith is, you know, we have no idea what the new coach is going to do in terms of the netminded situation. You know, we've got no European hockey in our season next season, so you know, I would be tempted to think that we wouldn't bother with a third netminder. And we already know that Garnett's coming back for the second year of his uni deal, and assuming, you know, Gospel's not made other arrangements, you know, you'd think those are our 2 netminders. I mean, who are the other names?
Pither, Galbraith, Brown and Mosey.
Okay, well, Mosey, I mean, he was the prodigal son, wasn't he? This season, and you know the alarming statistic when he was injured, that when he was injured we only won 2 games. I mean that's reason enough just to get him signed up. Frankly, you know, if we're only going to win games when he's fit and healthy, then get him signed and stick him out on the ice in bubble wrap. Frankly, that's if that's what it takes to win games. Yeah, I mean, Jeff Brown's had a bit of he's had a bit of an opposite season to the rest of the Panthers team. I think Jeff Brown's had a very solid second half of the season. You know, where we've started to dip, he's been the guy who's, you know, tried to push himself and raise his head above the parapet and absolutely, you know, take the ball by the horns. But he seems to have been the only one to stand out in terms of doing it, Pither aside, you know, because I mean his entire season was the last half of the season for us. But yeah, Jeff Brown's had a very solid second half of the season. I don't know, maybe that's in response to the general state of the Panthers season December onwards, and if it is, then yeah, I mean, why not? I mean, it would be nice to see that level of effort. Not effort. That's the wrong word, because Jeff Brown always puts in effort, but that level of performance for, you know, for the whole season, regardless of, you know, feeling like he's got to be the guy to pick the rest of the team up. I think those 4 names would be names that I wouldn't grumble at if we were to re-sign them. I don't think there's any of those where I would be, you know, chucking things at walls and getting angry.
Okay. Gemma Alice Swinscoe, she says disappointing, and that's being polite. To do so well in one area and then do so badly everywhere else is heartbreaking. I know we can't win everything, but on paper we looked unbeatable. Nevertheless, Cardiff deserve everything they got. And finally, a bit of an outside view. This comes from Kenwyn Jones, a regular contributor to the show, and he is, of course, a Cardiff fan. Kenwyn says, the semi-final game loss to the Steelers reminded me of your whole season, from the first Aladdin Cup game against us to that semi-final loss. Huge early promise, flattering to deceive, only to finally peter out. Should have done way, way better. And it's #baffling. I mean, Adam, I can hear you saying, you clearly agree with that.
Oh yeah, I think Kenwyn's spot on there with that commentary of the Panthers season. And, it's so disappointing because, we thought we had a special team on our hands, didn't we, before the disastrous December run. We thought that, it had skill and grit in equal measure. Okay, we weren't blasting teams out of the water, but we were doing enough to win. We'd seen that the team had quality in the Champions Hockey League games, and we broke new ground and uncharted territory through that campaign. And the fact that we've gone so flat is baffling. And I suspect pretty much every other Panthers fan will be bemused for a long, long, long time about what the actual root cause of how Panthers' season derailed so spectacularly. Because surely the injury of Mosey and Mosey alone can't have had that much of a bearing on how our season panned out from there on in. I refuse to believe that, because whilst Mosey's a really, really important player, surely if you're going to do well as a team, you've got to be able to withstand the loss of one player for a couple of months. And it's baffling. It really is. I've spent so much time thinking about the way this season's panned out and how disastrous it's sort of been. I thought we had one last shot at redemption with the playoffs, but we managed to screw that up by not holding a 2-goal lead against Sheffield. So this season, I think generally, like Kenwyn said, started so brilliantly well, but leaves a really, really bitter sort of aftertaste in the mouth, if I'm being honest.
I think for me, it's one of those that, in the years to come, it's one of the great mysteries of the world. The Bermuda Triangle and all that lot, and what the hell happened to the Panthers in the 2017-18 season.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough.
Solving the Da Vinci Code would be easier.
Yeah. Just one more tweet that we had that I sent over to you all, but it's a Ask TCW question. But obviously, as we're not doing Ask TCW for a while now, I thought I'd slot it in here. And it comes from James Vickers, and he says, in 3 points, what do you want for next season in regards playing styles of play, etc.? So, who would like to go first on James' question?
Well, there's one thing I'd like first, and I'll maybe skip the second two and let other people jump in. But the one thing I'd want, and very, very soon, is an announcement on who the new head coach is going to be for next season.
Yeah. Fair enough.
And the sooner that happens, the better. Because it just ends all the uncertainty, and that new coach can get to business, get his feet under the table, and start signing a roster that hopefully won't make the same mistakes that this year's roster did. So I'll hand the baton on to somebody else now, and they can chuck a few more ideas in.
Yeah, okay. Aaron, you've not spoken for a while.
What do I want? Well, it's funny, I was having this conversation with my mother and sister today, actually. What do I want? I want a team with passion, and that comes from the very top. And this appointment that Adam just mentioned, which I think he is right about, it stems from that for me now. It really does. So I want to see a passionate, positive, and power play-esque Panthers. So, just because we've got a great arena to play ice hockey in, and it's a nice arena. I can imagine it's very nice to play hockey in our arena. And I think maybe sometimes it's too nice for the opposition to play hockey in our arena. So, I think us as fans, we need to play a part in that, because when we do, it turns it into a very different place for me. But the team, we're going in a completely different direction. So the team, has to show that passion, that they understand that we as fans care about this team. And, you're going to get the old added argument, and I'll try not to go on a massive kind of speech here, but you're going to get the old added argument of, it's a city centre team, 50% of the crowd are just interested in the price of the beer and where they're going out afterwards, etc., and and all that jazz. And that's fair enough, but there's 50%, there that care about that team and care about the players and care about, the shirts that they're wearing, etc., that they bought and spent money on. So for me, the team has to replicate that, and that has to come from the coach. Nottingham is a sporting city. It has great history in sport, and fans have played massive part in those historical events. Whether that's Forest winning the European Cup twice in a row, Notts County being the oldest football club in the league, James Horville and Christopher Dean, going back to 1984, etc., has massive history, and the Panthers have had history in what we've achieved even this season going into the CHL, but we need to see that replicated week in, week out when we're at home in the domestic competitions, and obviously especially the league. So that team that we have next season has to play with passion and a never say die attitude of the badge that's on the front of the shirt. So for me, that is all I want to see, because if I see that and we lose, then I'm happy, because we have no given right to win, and as long as the team have given their all, then that's all I can ask for. But it's a big job. It's a big job, and let's be honest, I think, like I said, we'd like to see a bit more success on the power play, really.
Anyone else want to come in on that?
Yeah, go on then. Okay. I'd love to see a hard-hitting physical team. Unfortunately, I don't think the way hockey is going is going to allow for that sort of style of play anymore. I want to see proper power forwards. I want to see players that make it, not dangerous, but I want to see opposition defensemen having to look over the shoulders. Like when Janssen was on the ice, he had everybody looking over their shoulders because they knew full well whether he was going to attempt to finish his check. I want opposition forwards coming into our zone to sort of have one eye on what's going on around them. Unfortunately, like I said, I don't think the way hockey's going is going to allow for that sort of play no more. So at the end of the day, I just want to see us win. And if it means winning every game 1-0, then fantastic, because that means we've won 100% of our games. That's obviously not possible either. So, it wouldn't be amiss to see a return of the sexy Nielsen hockey. It's like, you may score 4, but we're going to score 6.
But without the Nielsen, obviously.
But without Corey, obviously. But, because that way we had, you think of the players that we've had, the Beauregards up front. We've had like the Lepines and the K-Walls at the back. We've had some real top class hockey players for this country. And that's something we've missed over the last couple of years.
Okay. All right, we shall move on to some of the other news that has happened since playoff weekend. And the big news coming out of Sheffield on Monday was that they are releasing 9 players. Irving Mustakovs, Jonas Westerling, Andrew Svaltix, Eunice Romberg, Colton Fretter, Tim Wallace, Matt Marquardt, Andreas Jamtin and Zach Fitzgerald are all being released by the Steelers, and that whoa, let me finish. Let me finish. Hold your horses. A real statement of intent by the Steelers after winning nothing this season, but a lot of anger still in the fan base because quite a sizable portion who've been very vocal on social media, they want Paul Thompson, the coach, to go. So, what did we make of that? Tina, I think you need to go first.
Yes, I do. Tom Owen. I'm not going to believe that Romberg has actually gone until they release a video showing him getting on the plane.
He'll still be back.
Then he'll make his way back.
And then he'll come back in like, I don't know, October or something.
Don't buy him a return ticket.
Yeah, no, don't. For the love of God, don't buy it. Well, no, it's fine. You crack on, Sheffield. You won nothing this season. If you want to sign Ramberg up again, you carry on. It is a statement of intent, but I think it's also a statement of how much Tomo's feeling the pressure. He knows that his trophy haul this season, i.e. nothing, is unacceptable, and he's had a fairly consistent run of players for a consistent amount of time, and there's the old saying: if you continue to do the same thing and expect different results, you're a fool. So it's something needed to change. Something needs to change, because if things don't change on the ice, then Sims is going to be crying into his KFC when his best mate gets given the heave-ho, because even Sheffield will not tolerate mediocrity for too much longer. They won't have it. So even Tomo's job is not 100% safe. I don't care what Dave Sims has got on the rest of the league, but if things don't change at Sheffield, Tomo will go. Have faith, Sheffield fans. At some point, you'll get your wish. But for now, Tomo in.
Anyone else? Because that's a big chunk of players and all imports.
It's a big chunk of players, absolutely. But I mean, Sheffield fans for most of this season have been very unhappy about the level of on ice performance, and ultimately they've won nothing, as Tina said. So you could argue that the Sheffield fans were right in voicing their protestations and wanting changes to be made. So I think the club have probably recognised that there's a lot of anger from their fan base towards the team at the end of a trophyless season. So how can we sort of start to appease those fans and get them back on side? Well, let's release a raft of what you might call underperforming players. It was interesting, though, over the weekend that, I spoke to Sheffield fans too, even after the game on Saturday where they beat us. And it seems that even if Sheffield had won the playoffs this year, a lot of fans would still want to see Thompson depart the club. I think it's going to be really, really, really difficult for Paul Thompson to regain the sort of trust and the excitement of the Sheffield fans, and get their support behind Paul Thompson again, because there's just so much sort of disillusionment being aimed in Paul Thompson's direction. So he's going to have to sign the mother of all rosters over the summer to give that Sheffield fan base a team that they're looking for next year, or else I can't see Thompson lasting too much time into the next year. So it's a big call. It's a brave call, because there are some what you might term fan favourites amongst that group of 9 players. But you got to say, from Thompson's side of things, it's a brave move. But if it all goes wrong and Sheffield don't get the start that they're looking for next year, it wouldn't surprise me if Tomo's out the door within the first 6 weeks of the season.
Okay.
Jono, can I just put in just very quickly though? But do you know the one thing that I do not necessarily admire, but I give credit to Sheffield, is they don't hang about and they make a decision. Now, whether that's the right or wrong decision, that's up for debate. But they make a decision, and that's what I kind of applaud them on. Now, similar to what Adam was saying, I spoke to a couple of Steelers friends and stuff like that, and they weren't bothered about the playoff kind of games, really. They thought they'd lose. They've not been excited this season, and so really the call doesn't surprise me, because I don't think Tomo was ever going anywhere personally. I think it's something drastic would have to happen for him to go. So I'm not necessarily surprised by the call, but what I do kind of want to know is, and I know that, have you spoken to Panthers management about signing the Moose, or have you sent the Moose a DM?
Not much chance of sending the Moose a DM since he blocked me on Twitter.
He blocks anybody to do with Panthers. No,
I tell you what, I've said it before and I'll say it again. If he used his blocker like he uses his block on Twitter, he'd be a far better netminder. But I must admit, that was a surprise, Mustakovs.
It's a bold decision, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, but after everyone telling me how good he is, it seems that the Steelers management don't agree. And well, everybody knows my opinion on Mustakovs, so I'm not going to repeat it. But I think Sheffield can do better. I hope they don't, but I think they can.
So you've not spoken to Panthers management about signing him?
I'd rather.
There is no
Panthers
management.
I would rather than put me in the net, frankly.
What would you do if we did sign the Moose?
What would I do? Well, it's not going to happen.
He's being lined up for player head coach.
We've got Garnett back, so it's not even going to happen. So I wouldn't even think about it. It's not happening. So there you go.
Does anybody think he's going to sign for another Elite League club?
Yes.
What club?
Ooh, that's a tough one.
I think he'll end up in Coventry.
Ooh.
No, I was thinking more Milton Keynes.
Ooh.
If Mika Vietman doesn't go back there, but I think he will go to a probably bottom half Elite League club is a possibility.
Maybe he'll go to Belfast with apparently Whistle going the other way. It's a hot rumour.
I'm going to say Bray Club.
Yeah, that's not a bad shout actually. Not a bad shout at all.
I think Pete Russell might be a fan of the Moose. So a
lot of people are fans. A lot of people are fans of the Moose.
Well, I mean,
I'll never be one
of himself. He's top three netminder in the last 3 years or whatever. The guy don't lie on Twitter.
Moving on,
and some sort of sad news, but also good news at the same time. Brandon Benedict will leave the Elite League after 9 seasons with both the Belfast Giants and the Nottingham Panthers to take up a head coach position at Newbridge Academy in Canada. I said it on Twitter today. A legend, an absolute gentleman as well. Gave us quite a few interviews in his time with Panthers and with Belfast as well. A top gent, and I'm sure we all wish him all the very, very best in his new position.
Yeah, I hope he does well, and then hopefully we might see him back as coach in a few years to come. I'd love to see him back. I'd love to see him back.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I would like to give everybody just one little piece of advice, though. Don't ever ask Brandon Benedict to take a photo for you, because he'll run off with your phone and start taking random photos. Honestly, I turned up to an event once and I was on my own and I had to ask other players to take photos for me. And Benedict got my phone. He was taking a picture of me and Bruce Graham. And after he'd got Bruce Graham to crouch down to my height, which, believe me, that was a challenge in itself. He then proceeded to run off around. I mean, they're all horrible, blurry photos. I mean, I've got this really odd one of a real proper close up of David Ling's teeth. His false ones. So if you need a piece of advice, everybody, don't ever give Brandon Benedict a camera or a phone with a camera on it, because he'll run off with it and just take loads of random photos. But other than that, just keep him focused on the hockey. You'll be sound.
I didn't think I could think any higher of Brandon Benedict, but I do now. He's gone up even higher in my explanation. So
we've had a tweet in from Chris Lovell, another friend of the show and a Belfast fan. He says, just to say the best of luck to Brandon Benedict, who played for so long and then took a break from hockey before coming back to Belfast. Yeah, standard Belfast.
No. I tell you what, it's one hell of a break that you take if you win a league championship while you're doing it.
6 trophies he won.
I know, but can Chris remember that pass that Brandon Benedict did to
Pat Gallivan, top shelf?
Yeah, for the game-winning goal.
Was that the game-winning goal? But what did the game-winning goal for what though, Tina? I can't quite remember.
I think we won a trophy, you know.
Did we?
Yeah. Was it? Oh, hang on. That was in Belfast, wasn't it?
It was, wasn't it? It was. Yeah.
Anyway, Chris goes on.
Stories.
Shut up.
I bet he does.
A true gent. Best memory was the hug in the nightclub after the Challenge Cup win. Saw us walk in and came straight over to thank us for coming to Wales. And I think that epitomises the kind of chap that Brandon Benedict is.
Proper legend.
Yeah.
And all the best.
More uncertainty over the Edinburgh Capitals as it appears that another group has applied to run an elite league team out of Murrayfield Ice Rink, who have asked for tenders from both the current Capitals management and this new group, which includes Tony Hand's brother David Hand. Ant, you sort of mentioned this about being on the agenda, so I'll give you your thoughts if you can.
Oh, do we have to go here again? I think we spent the latter half of the season saying, is it time to put a fork in the cap? So are they done? I'm guessing this new team, based on the name that they call themselves, are wanting to bring back the Murrayfield races. But on the other hand, could they do a sort of AC Milan Inter Milan thing and just have two teams coming out of the rink? It would bring in some potentially much needed funding to the building. I've had plenty of discussions about the building as well, in that for me, that's the number one priority, needs to be doing something with that building, renovating it inside. I know it's a listed building and you have to apply and everything, but it's let's put it this way, it's a dump. It's a dump. It's like, I don't know if anybody ever went to the old Chesterfield Stadium towards the end, but used to stand on the terrace.
Saltergate.
Saltergate.
Went many
standing
times
on the terrace, and the steps are crumbling, and
your street terrace.
Yeah, your toilet hasn't even got a roof on it. It's basically just a shedded, a sort of a fenced off bit where you go and do your business. It's not great. And I appreciate there's a lot of love for the history of the building, and you old time hockey fans love the atmosphere of it and everything. But no, they've got to bring it up to code. They've got to do something. So I don't care who runs the team out of there. It'd be nice if there was a elite league team in Edinburgh. But for me, they've got to do something with that rink.
Other things that happened last week. The Great Britain Under-18s team won gold and promotion at the Division 2A of the World Championships in Estonia. A fantastic performance by GB, who of course included Panthers, Joe Hazeldine amongst their roster. Did anybody catch any of the games at all on Free Sports?
I haven't got
Sadly not,
because Virgin is still being git.
Fair enough.
But I understand you did, Joe. Do you want to tell us all about it?
Yeah, Jono. Did you? I think you might.
There's
have
a whisper Jono was in Estonia.
Yeah, you might have mentioned that you went to Estonia, Jono.
I went to Estonia last week to help cover the Great Britain Under-18s for
Shut
Free
the
Sports.
front door.
In all seriousness, it was fantastic performance. It was funny because you know how who mentioned Sexy Nielsen hockey earlier?
Me.
Antoine.
They played very much in that Sexy Nielsen hockey style. There
was a Nielsen present.
There was Kate.
There's a Nielsen on the roster.
I tell you what, he's a player and a half. He's very, very good. In fact, there's several very good players in that team. Mason Biddulph, he was the top scorer. I've mentioned him before. He's 16 years old and scored 6 goals and 3 assists. Cade Nielsen was fantastic. Kieran Brown of the Steelers scored an absolutely unbelievable goal against Poland. And then, of course, Liam Kirk was there as well, as the captain, scored 2 game-winning goals in the final 2 games. And it's easy to see why he is attracting the attention of NHL scouts. He really is that good. And it was just great to see. And it was great to see a Great Britain team play with such swagger and style and confidence. And I think 12 of the team are eligible to play in the under-18s next year as well. So a huge core of that team is still going to be available. And they're going to have to step it up again, because it'd be a harder challenge in the division above. But it's worth remembering that in this competition they were the 5th seeds and won the gold medal. So 5th seed out of 6 and won the gold. It's an incredible achievement. And many congratulations to Tony Hand and his team, who has got them playing some excellent hockey. Right, there's nobody else coming in on that. So.
I think, well, you were there, Jono. So you were the best person to sign off on that, I think. It is fantastic, though, isn't it?
It really is. It really is. And there is so much... There's a lot to be positive about, because there's an awful lot of talent in the juniors, an awful lot of talent. And quite honestly... I wrote an article about it for the Cats Whiskers website that you can catch. It's called Golden Generation. So go over to the Cats Whiskers website and have a read of that. I think there's 4 players of that team. If Liam Kirk is rightly catching the eye of the NHL scouts, then I think there's at least 3 other players as well as him who could be catching the eye as well, because there's a huge depth of talent there. So we shall see.
Well, the key thing is to try and get these kids, into some sort of organised structure here. I know some play overseas for different sides, but I might be being slightly idealistic. But wouldn't it be good to see some of these under-18s progress, and become, more part of elite league rosters in the next year or so? Because to me, it seems like we've got the same old tried and trusted Brits that play for their size year in, year out, and we need a bit of a freshen up because Clark's retired. There's a couple of other forwards in the league. Shields is getting on.
Yeah,
absolutely. Where's the next wave of young British players going to come from? And it's quite reassuring to hear what you're saying about the standard and the quality of the players in the GB under-18s at the moment. The key thing is to make sure that they progress and they actually see light at the end of the tunnel for them, and they actually get the carrot of a job, a roster spot on an elite league team. And next year, for example, it'd be nice to see Hazeltine break through a little bit more and play a few more games and pick up a bit more ice time with us. I mean, it's up to the new coach, of course, but we need to start helping these youngsters out by rewarding their good performances in the GB shirt, by trusting their ability. Because to be honest, if you're good enough, you're young enough.
Yeah, absolutely. And Liam Kirk actually finds himself in the senior squad now, and may make it for the final cut to Budapest. So we shall see. If he does, that will mean he'll have represented 3 Great Britain teams this season: the under-20s, the under-18s, and possibly even the seniors. So it just goes to show what a special player he is. Okay, I think that's us all done for the season. Another season done and dusted. I want to say thank you very much to you, for everyone who's listened and contributed and got in touch over the past season. We wouldn't have a show if it wasn't for you, if it wasn't for you listening, and if it wasn't for you sending your questions in for us at TCW. So thank you very much for that, and have a great summer. All that's left for me to say is thank you very much to Adam Reddish.
Thanks, everybody.
Antoine Marie-Jeanne.
Thanks, Jono. Thanks, the rest of TCW. Thanks, the fans. Have a great summer. We'll see you in August, September.
Aaron Lord.
Cheers. Thank you, guys. It's always a pleasure being on. Thank you for the work that you do, you crazy lot. And thank you to the fans for being a part of what we all enjoy doing.
And last but not least, Tina, who I want to personally thank for steering the ship so wonderfully well while I've not been available for most of the second half of the season.
Well, what one does what one can. Thank you very much to my fellow panelists for pitching in and making themselves available. And again, I'd like to echo everybody else. Thank you to everybody who's listened, contributed, got in touch, and supported us in any way, shape, or form. And enjoy your off season. The rehab starts here to get yourself integrated back into real life, and let the rumour mill commence, and we'll pick it all up again in about August time. So until then, TTFN.
We will be having a couple of specials. We are trying to sort some special David Clark podcast to pay tribute to him for his time at the Panthers, and we also have another podcast in the pipeline, which is the greatest Panthers Elite League era team, which is something we are working on. It should be out at some point over the summer, and we will of course have regular podcasts over the summer, probably once a month, and certainly when a new coach is announced, we shall get something out there. So once again, thank you, and look out for those. But before we go, of course, everybody knows there was a horrible tragedy at the end of last week. The Humboldt Broncos of Saskatchewan were involved in an awful road accident, which has now seen 16 of that roster and support staff lose their lives. It's hard to remember that sometimes this is just a game. It means a lot to a lot of people, and it's a lot of people's lives. Just remember those 16 people. They won't be going home ever again. So thank you for listening. Have a great summer, and we'll see you soon. This edition of the Cat's Whiskers podcast was brought to you by the Bunkers Hill Hockley.